Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
All right, welcome to the Men Talking Mindfulness podcast. I'm John Macaskill, and I'm here with my co-host, Will Schneider. And today we are talking with former professional basketball player. Will's a basketball player. Dre is a former professional basketball player. Dre Baldwin, to discover the power of a champion's mindset. Dre is going to help us and help you to learn how the principles that drive success in sports can transform your approach to business and life, empowering you to achieve peak performance in every endeavor. Also, we're switching up our intro to get into the meat and potatoes of the show much faster. So our announcements, super short. Text MTM to 33777 to see what we're up to. And by texting, you can join our mailing list, our text message list, and find out about our next retreat, which is May 16th through the 19th in Colorado. That said, we're also going to be changing up our intro exercise. We're just going to be doing one simple grounding breath together. And if you're looking for a longer practice, stay tuned until the end where we'll have that longer practice. So let's just bring ourselves into our bodies, into our minds, into the space and time that we're in right here, right now. Let's take a deep breath in, hold, and release. Focusing on that breath. All right, now we're grounded here and now. So let's get into the show. Dre, welcome to the show, my friend. Will, good to see you, brother, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Hey, welcome everybody back to the show. Dre, so great to have you here. First thing I want to know is why you're called Dre all day.
Great question. First of all, thank both of you, Will and John, for having me on and sharing your platform here. And why I'm called Dre all day, because I made that name up. So I gave myself that name.
Why that name? Why not like another Dre?
So when I first saw the internet becoming what it was becoming, which is probably about 20 years ago, maybe a little bit before, maybe 2002, and you could see that people could make their own websites and blogs and things. This was back when if you wanted a website, Yahoo GeoCities page. You remember those?
Yeah, right.
We all wanted to have by me and about me. It doesn't really ring off that much. I mean, it doesn't. So I needed something that was a little bit catchier than that. So I read this book called Pop, P-O-P, by this author by the name of Sam Horn. And P-O-P stands for Pivy, Original, Purpose. Gave all these ideas for coming up. Then a lot of brands that we know of, they have really good names. So I'm playing around with it in my mind. I came up with Dre All Day. So people will easily remember that. So my first website was dreallday.com. So that's where it came from.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're losing you a little bit here and there, Dre, but we're going to just push through and see what happens. Hopefully things will improve with time. But, I'm a military veteran. I retired Navy SEAL, and I transitioned from being in the military to doing what I do now. And that transition was difficult for me because I had identified myself as a military member for so long. How were you able to transition the skills and the discipline from basketball into your business endeavors and your content creation? And how was that transition for you?
Does it sound okay now? Is it catching up?
We'll see. It's coming in and out.
Okay. So it was actually pretty simple because a lot of the things that I used to make it work in sports, I ended up making it work. I ended up using to make it work in business because a lot of it started with mindset. And then once I figured out the other pieces, it started with the mindset. Then it got to the strategy, which is simply just having a plan. System, how can I do the same things over and over again so it's duplicatable and predictable? And then accountability, making sure that the people and the systems and the plans are actually working the way that they're supposed to. So a lot of that is what I was using in sports, and that's really where the foundation of work on your game came from.
Nice.
And when I started talking about this stuff, what happened is a lot of people who were not athletes, they started hearing those pieces. When I started talking about things that were not specifically sport related, people who didn't play sports started hearing that message and saying, well, Dre, these things you're saying, these apply to me, and I don't play basketball. So that's how I knew that I could use that stuff to transition from the sports world to the really where I wanted to go was the entrepreneurship world, because I had always been in the back of my mind. I knew I didn't want to just stay in sports. I didn't want to be the player who then becomes a trainer and then a coach or an analyst. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go from playing and then get out of it and then do something completely and nothing to do with basketball. And that's pretty much what I did.
Nice. And then that mindset that you talked about, in your opinion, what are the key components of that sports mindset, that winning mindset, that transition into the business and then the life that we all live?
Great question. So there's basically 4 pieces, and this is where it all started. It's the discipline of showing up every day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, mental toughness to keep showing up, doing the work and putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to occur, and personal initiative to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. So once I started talking about those things, that's when the athletes, of course, they appreciated it because they realized that they needed more than just know how to do the dribbling moves. They needed the mindset to actually use it in the game when they needed it. And then the people who didn't play sports said, I know you're making that for the athlete, but those same principles, those apply to me, and I run an IT firm, or, I'm a professor, or I'm starting my own business. Those same principles apply to me the same way they apply to the ball player. So those are the 4 main pillars of the mindset part of what we do, and mindset is the most important part of what we do.
Nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed, I watched maybe, I don't know, the TED Talk like from 6 years ago or something. They can have like 3 of them. It's just impressive, like your whole body of work that you've done. And, like you started your story saying like, I scored, 20 points, when I was playing high school ball, and it's like, 20 points the whole season, and then go on to be a professional basketball player, which is incredible. And you would think like, how do those 2 things even happen? Through all the trials and tribulations to succeed on the basketball court professionally and then succeed in business, how it must have happened early on. Like, so how do you prevent yourself, almost starting from, almost no base, no one knowing you as a basketball player and then going on to play professionally? How did you continually rescue yourself from, thinking that you're a failure and giving up?
And that's a great question, Will. And I never really had that thought. I never thought to myself that I was a failure. There are times when I was failing, but I never looked at myself as a failure. And those are, of course, but 2 different things, right? A failure is a way of, is a mind. Failing is just something that happens. It's like the difference between being broke and being poor. Right? Broke is just a temporary financial state, but poor is a way of thinking. Doesn't matter how much money you have. So I never put myself in a position of feeling like I was a failure, because I always knew that I was going to create the success that I was aiming for. It was just a matter of how it was going to happen and when it was going to happen. But never think that comes from just the mental conditioning that I had been doing on myself even before I was doing purpose. And that's because I've always been a big reader of books. And once I found out that there was a whole genre of what we now call personal development, I really dove into that deeply and really got into that stuff. And I've read several books 10, 20, 30 times because of the impact they've had on me. But read the physical book, go buy the audio book, listen to it again, and screenshots out of books, put them into an Evernote folder. So all of that is part of my mental conditioning. And because I've conditioned myself, and I still to this day have mental conditioning activities that I do on a consistent basis, habits that I do every day, that's part of it's just part of who I am. It becomes who you are as a person. It's not something that you do. And that's a big piece that you asked. I'm glad you asked me this question, because it's something that I tell people who come and work with us in our programs, is that the most important thing we need to do when it comes to mindset is make it who you are, not something that you do. It's not an activity. Right? Mindset is not an activity. It's a way of being. And when we get that way of being where you want it to be, you'll be able to deal with things, because stuff is still going to happen. But you'll be able to deal with it a lot more easily than if you were just looking at mindset as an activity or something that you do 15 minutes a day.
Yeah. Well, what are some of those books? Thank you, John. Yeah. that have really had an influence, because I love the way you break it down. It's like, I do a lot of the same thing with books I really love. It's like, I read them several times, audiobook it, even to double it down, take notes on it. So what are some of the big winners for you as far as that help you to, I love that it came from books too, because there's a lot of great books out there. What are the ones that had those biggest effect on you?
Man, biggest effects for 40 favorite book of all time. Also
which one
by
we lost you
Robert.
there? Sorry. Yeah, we lost you on the first one.
What did you say?
Well, we lost you on that
first one,
book.
48 Laws of Power.
Okay. Oh, great book. Love
48
that
Laws of Power.
Yeah,
Robert
man.
Greene.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my favorite book of all time. Then you have 33 Strategies of War, also by Robert. The 50th Law, also by Robert. So I'm a big Robert Greene fan. He's my favorite author. Yes, him and 50. Yeah. I mean, Robert wrote most of the book, but he took 50 Cent stories. What else? Think and Grow Rich. Actually, The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, because Think and Grow Rich was in The Law of Success. He just kind of took it out and made another product out of it. So I'll go with The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Unleash the Power Within by Tony Robbins is a great one. I think his best book. And there's so many. I'm probably close to 1,000 books that I've read, so I can't list them all. But I've always been a big reader.
Hopefully our audience wrote those down, and we'll make sure those are in the show notes too. Those are all fantastic reads. I'm going to have to go back and read some of those myself, but the ones that I recognized definitely swear by them. But also your routine that you said, the activities, right? They're not activities that are part of who you are. What do those look like? Like I've got a basic daily routine that I try to do every morning, and then another one in the evening. What does that look like for you?
So in the morning, I have a set of basically auto suggestions, I guess what you'll call suggestions that you make to yourself. And those are really just about for myself. And I wrote them down, but I've said it to myself every day for probably at least maybe 10 years, to the point that I don't have to look at them anymore. I know them. I can just recite them to myself every day. So I do that every day after I do my yoga. And I do yoga for about 5-10 minutes every morning. I use the meditation Calm. I use a Calm app for meditation while I'm doing that. Yeah, I used to try to meditate by sitting still with my eyes closed. That didn't work. I would fall asleep. So now I use the meditation app while I'm doing the yoga. So I guess they call that moving meditation. So that's how I do that. And that's my morning routine. It's with a liter of water. Then I'm usually eating a couple pieces of fruit, and then I'm doing my workout. So I don't eat a meal in the morning, but that's what I do in the morning. So that's how I start the day. It's probably the first 30 to 60 minutes, and then I'm off to a workout. So that's used to be basketball. Now it's either like today I was at the boxing gym, or I'll go outside and run, or I'll do go outside and run, boxing gym. Actually, those are two things that I do. Yeah, so that's every other day.
Nice. Good for you, man. Now, challenges, and a lot of our guests have had challenges. I mean, who's a human being who has not had some type of challenge? What was or what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in your life, whether it's in sports and business, and how did you overcome those?
Well, the biggest challenge in sports was in this fact that fact that I only played 1 year of basketball in high school, and then I played Division III college. Anyone who knows the sports is college sports, so that's not usually where you get your pro athletes from.
Right.
So once people found that out about me, when I got online, because I was on YouTube making basketball videos, and people could see like clearly this guy can play, and then when they found out my background, like, man, you only played Division III. You look like you were better than that. You only played 1 year high school. You look like a better player than that, because most players who have that kind of background usually kind of can't play, right? But I could actually play. So they're like, well, how'd that happen? And it was really because I just started late. I was a late bloomer in basketball. So once people found that out, that's when they started asking about what's the mentality behind this person. And that's where the mindset stuff came from that we already addressed. So the biggest challenge for me was the fact that I had to overcome that, because regardless of it being late, the coaches at the pro level don't care that you started late. They're like, can you help us or not? Right? That's what they care about. So I had to prove that. And then, having to go sell myself. I had to sell myself to get on the team in college as a walk-on. I had to sell myself to get into the pros. And those were big challenges in the sports world. As far as in the business world, during that period of transitioning from not playing ball anymore to being a full-time entrepreneur, I had to establish myself like, hey, this guy does have something that is, yes, he used to play basketball, but he has something that can help people who don't care anything about basketball. So I had to establish that. So it took me some time to get people to see, like, yeah, you made YouTube videos, used to play basketball, but what does that have to do with us? Right? That's what I would get that kind of question, not in so many words, from a lot of people I was reaching out to, because the first thing I was trying to do was a whole lot of professional speaking. So my first maybe 3 or 4 years out of basketball, that's what I was really focused on, was the professional speaking circuit. And they needed to know, all right, how does this apply to us? And you did all those videos online, but can you speak in front of a live audience? So they didn't know. I knew. No. And I had to prove that. So you got to get out there and you got to perform. And the same thing I used to tell the athletes. You can believe you're the best player on the team, but until you get on the court and actually do something in the game, then we have no proof. So I had to get proof for myself. And the same thing I had to do in basketball, I had to do in business.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
What was some of the, if you can share some of your big tips about like effectively selling yourself? It's like, it's just really for any entrepreneur, anybody that wants to start anything, especially public speaking, really putting yourself out there could be very hard, so what are some of the ways that you can, make that happen and be effective with that?
We got to have a whole conversation just on that alone. But when it comes to effectively selling yourself, first of all, let's just understand what sales is. First of all, just understanding what your offer is, or your product or service. Then you have to communicate the value of your product or service, and then you ask for the sale. So I call it I've created a framework around it's called the ICE method, ICE. So I is identify someone who actually has a need or a void that you can fill with your offer. Then the C is communication, letting people know that you have something that can help them. And then the E is the exchange, because you haven't done any business, so there's an exchange. Somebody's giving somebody money and the other person's getting the product or service. So that's the ICE method.
I like that.
Now, under each one of these headings, you got 10 or 20 more subheadings. Sorry. How do you identify? How do you communicate? All right. How do you close the sale? All right, you could write their whole book on that. Right. So a lot of stuff can go in. I don't know which direction y'all.
No. I mean, I'll just jump in and say, like, this is exactly what Dre did to get to our show. He had sent us an email like 6 months earlier, right? And we're lucky to get quite a few guest requests, and we just dropped this one. It just didn't it didn't like materialize or whatever. And then sure enough, months later he hit us up again, and we're like, oh shit, like we forgot to get back to Dre, right? And we watched your video. I mean, exactly what you said. This is this value I can add to your show. This is how I can help you. Like, here's my, establish yourself as an authority. Like, this is all the stuff I've done. And we're like, oh my God, like writing back in apologies saying, hey, sorry not, to miss your email. But here you are, right? You know what I mean? Like helping our, believing in what you're doing. And, and here we are having a conversation.
Here's the difference too. Like, we'll get a lot of emails that say, hey, I made this personalized video for you, but you can tell that it wasn't personalized. You can tell that they just recorded it and they send it out to the masses. But Dre addressed us by name several times in his recording. And I'm like, oh man, we screwed up. We got to get a hold of this guy. So I'm so glad that we finally got you here on the show, man. It's great to have you here.
Let's follow up.
Yeah, that's right.
Always.
Who's your assistant? Is Marielle? Probably mispronounced.
Marielle, yes.
Marielle, she's fantastic too.
Marielle.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Let's talk about the long game, if you will, and you emphasize playing that long game for success. Why is that long game so important? And can you give an example of how this approach has paid off in your career? I mean, the one video that was the long game for getting on our show, and we appreciate your patience. But how is that important? And can you give another example?
Sure, I can give you plenty of examples. We can even start with that. So these days, when it comes to things like outreach, and whether you're trying to get on somebody's podcast or a live stream or a radio show, or you want to get a speaking gig, or you're selling anything these days, I'm sure you guys get DMs from random people trying to sell you stuff all the time. Like, we get them all the time. LinkedIn, Instagram, email, everybody's doing it. And back in, 2024 now, so 10 years ago, you could do that and it was novel and unique. It was new. It's not new anymore because everybody's doing it. So you have to figure out what you can do that everybody else is not doing. So one thing that I always tell my audience is that the opportunity is in the opposites. The opportunity is always in looking at what the masses of people are doing and doing the opposite of that. And that doesn't mean in every single thing. Right? Most people don't jump in front of trains. Doesn't mean you should do it just because it's the opposite. But you have to figure out where's the opportunity. Look at what everybody is doing. Ask yourself, if I did the opposite of this, where's the opportunity? And somewhere in there, there's going to be an opportunity. But you just have to be thinking that way and looking for it. So, for example, like you said, people send you all emails and want to be on your show, and you get the copy paste form emails from what are they called, the PR people. Yeah. And I know that people send those out, right? So I'm asking myself, what could I do that is going to be the opposite of what they're doing, what everybody else is doing, but it would actually stand out? And the key thing is doing things that don't scale. That's something that I'm always looking for. What can I do that doesn't scale? Because I cannot scale personally sending a message to 1,000 people. I can't do it. I can't make 1,000 personal messages in one day. But I can make one message in one day. I can make 5, and it doesn't scale. And to do that, because it is what everybody's talking about, right? How do I my business? There's some actually maybe you don't want to, right? You need to keep one this better, so it will help you get a better response rate or better, and maybe not and something that nobody else knows.
We're losing you a little bit, more Dre, but I think the gist of what you're saying is so many people are wanting to scale, and in actually going after stuff that does scale, that can potentially cause them harm, and in doing the tailored, individualized outreach by name like you did, you're actually going to be more effective. You may have fewer shots fired, if you will, but more of those shots land on target. We call that measure in the military. We call it measures of effectiveness and measures of performance, the MOPs and the MOs. And it sounds like your measure of performance is not how many emails you send out, but how many of those actually land, or maybe that's the measure of effectiveness. But regardless, I love that you're going after stuff that doesn't scale. That's totally counterintuitive to what most entrepreneurs do. I mean, I'm in that right now. Hey, how can I scale? How can I scale? How can we, as Men Talking Mindfulness, scale? But maybe we need to take a step back and look at how do we do something that doesn't scale? How can we affect one person, in a deep way? So I love that way of looking at it. Will, you got anything?
The God, Dre.
Yeah.
Oh no, I just want to tell a quick story about talking about not necessarily a guest, but doing something that's a little bit different. And we got an email the other day saying someone wanted to come on our show. She wrote a book about accessing dolphin consciousness. And I was like, that's a little far out there. But anyway, I just okay, maybe that's not something that's going to resonate with our audience. But it's just what dolphin consciousness? Yeah. So John, I think you have something.
I mean, I know a lot of what you're doing now, Dre. Yes, you're speaking, you're getting out there and marketing your services. And one of the services that you offer is coaching. Why is it so important to work with a coach to affect greater success?
Well, ask the question again. Why is it so important?
Yeah. So why is it so important for someone to work with a coach to affect greater success?
Well, one of the reasons that people get coaches is not because they are not good at what they do. I mean, you think about in the sports world, every professional athlete has a coach or a trainer, or usually both. Mm-hmm. It's not because they're not good. They're actually the best. And the reason people have coaches is because the coach, first of all, can help hold you accountable to make sure that you don't slip. Right. They can catch you anytime there is some slippage and correct it. And when you know that you're being held accountable, or you know that someone's watching what you're doing, we tend to do better work. We just tend to do better work when we have that social pressure, if you want to call it, of having a coach or a trainer around, regardless of how good you are. This is why the best performers out there all have coaches. Even the best singers, Taylor Swift and Beyonce, have voice coaches. All right, the best actors have acting coaches, whatever they're called. And even the best business people, they often have coaches, because it's not, again, about your ability to be a practitioner, but also, hey, here's a new idea, here's a new approach, here's what we can do to, we got an issue over here, how to compensate for that over here. And usually when you have two heads going into looking at a challenge, is better than having one. So different reasons why you would want to have a coach. And again, if you look around, they say success leaves clues, and the high around them who get to and stay at a high level.
I like that. We've recently got an advisor for the show, and having David Valadez as our advisor and production manager has been an absolute game changer for us as podcasters, but also as teachers and practitioners. Having a coach, I mean, coaches have coaches, right? So why would we not? Personal trainers have personal trainers. So it's fantastic to get you there.
Well, let me just say about coaching. I think one thing like you're speaking to, Dre, is like the coach actually is able to, kind of observe, you, right? And, what's working, what's not working, what you need to tinker with, what you need to get rid of, because it's tough to have that conversation on your own. Like, 'cause you're so locked into your experience, and it's like, it's tough to have that second set of eyes and that observer, and to come back to something that I say quite often that comes from Think and Grow Rich, is like when two minds come together, a third mind is formed, right? Masterminding, and in that third mind is where new possibilities come up, new ideas, new creativity, also even confidence to take another step. And that's what a coach can do. Because one thing that we run into quite often with men and masculinity, and helping to kind of change that narrative of masculinity, is men often, number one, they refuse to think that they might need help or have a problem, and number two is they don't really ask for help. But like by getting a coach and seeking help, like you can really start to change pretty rapidly by just having that second human being, that second set of eyes, that second mind, to kind of help you to understand yourself on a much deeper level. And then we're kind of such a slave to our habits, and a good coach is going to help you become aware of the habits that aren't working and create ones that do. So yeah, I love it's so important to have a coach, and it's nice. Like John does some coaching, I do coaching, you do coaching, and just to see people like change, right? Well, first, like to have that trust is so important. Like to really have that trust and that kind of flow between you and your student, or you and your coach. You can really make some significant changes by working with a coach, but you got to, like you said earlier, you got to keep showing up, consistency, and you got to be willing to try and be vulnerable and just keep going.
Right.
Yeah. So this is a fun question. So, what advice, if you were to go back, what advice would you give to your younger self? At the start of your basketball career, like what would that be? Or just, to start life again, what would you say to your younger self at this point, to where you got to today?
Most important is just getting engaged in personal development as quickly as possible, because I didn't learn about what it even was until I was in college, maybe 21-ish. So I would get engaged in that as quickly as possible. As personal development, you can consume it through just reading books. And nowadays on social media, you can get a healthy amount of personal development through a podcast or audiobooks or even YouTube, depending on who you listen to. So getting involved in that as quickly as possible. Secondly, get a financial education on just finance and how money works, because they don't teach it to you in school.
Don't you wish they did? Oh my gosh, they should absolutely teach that in school. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And when I first started to learn about that stuff, I asked myself, why aren't they teaching this in school? Because I have a business degree. So you would think in business, at least they would teach it. But I didn't understand why they didn't. But nowadays I do understand why they don't teach it. And we can get into that if you want. But that would be the next thing, is getting a financial education. And then the third thing, if I had to give one more, is really just getting around the right type of people. And if you're doing if you're doing the stuff when it comes to the personal development and the financial education, you're going to start thinking in a certain way. It's going to change kind of who you are as a person, and you're going to start attracting a certain type of person into your life. So certain type of people into your life, whether it be friends or romantic partners or business partners, whatever. So those would be the big three: personal development, finance, and relationships.
Right on, man. I love that. Sounds like you've answered that before. That was awesome, man. You had it down. So what about, we've talked about your favorite books, and you have your own podcast. What are some key insights or maybe favorite moments that you've had from your podcast that's deeply resonated with you or your audience?
Yeah, well, my show's a little bit different than most because mine is just solo. So it's kind of like the radio. So it's just like me talking every day for 20, 30 minutes. The best insight for me, it goes right back to what we talked about earlier, John, is what can I do that doesn't scale? What can I do that everybody else is not doing? Where's the opportunity here? So when I first launched my show was in 2016. I said, all right, well, most people are interviewing people, so I'm not going to interview anyone. I'm going to just do it myself. And then it was most people's shows come out maybe twice a week, 3 times a week, once a week. I would put mine out every day because that's what I've been doing on YouTube already. So my basketball stuff was every day. And anyway, I call myself Dre all day. So why not just come out every day? So I just kept putting my show out every day. And the biggest insight for me is that's really where my best audience members come from. Like the audience members who become members of my paid stuff. Yeah. Usually they are coming through the podcasting platform because a lot of times these are people who are busy running their businesses or busy at work. So they are not scrolling through Instagram. They are not watching YouTube or TikTok or anything like that. They don't have time for that. They can listen to a show while they're driving or while they're cooking dinner at home or while they're working out. So they can just listen audio wise and I can get my full thoughts out in full context and I have their complete attention, or at least, it's divided because they can look at other things that they're listening to me for 30 minutes straight. So I can give full context as opposed to a YouTube video where you might only get 2 minutes of attention before someone clicks on something else. So that's what I like best about the audio space. And I think studies have shown this, or data has shown this, that people who listen to podcasts tend to be higher earning individuals. They tend to be more well-read, more intelligent. I don't know how they measure the intelligence, but higher earning, more well-read individuals. And again, you get more of their attention for a longer time when you put out a 30-minute audio episode than if you put out a 30-minute YouTube video. Because if someone's watching YouTube, they can click on one of those videos on the side. Yeah. Or if they're on Instagram, they just scroll through. They might not even see your post, but they scroll right past it. So with the audio, you have more attention for longer. So that's what I like most about the audio platform. And it's very low. It seems kind of complicated before you start it, but once you understand how to do it, it's pretty low tech. Oh yeah. As opposed to the visual can be very high tech because you got the editing process and how do I make this look right and lighting and the B-roll and all that stuff. But with audio, as long as you can talk and people can hear you, then you can get your point across. Right.
Yeah, I love producing in GarageBand. It's so easy. I like the video aspect, but it's like, oh shit, like I got to worry about the background and my clothes. Right. You know what I mean? Where I'm reading or not reading. You know what I mean? Like it's just, but the audio is so nice. But like you bring up a good point about higher earners and maybe people that are more intelligent listen to the podcast, and it's almost like there's, I think higher earners or in my experience, or it's not like I'm a super high earner at all, not yet, but it's getting there. There's a certain curiosity I feel that comes with the podcast, and what's nice about podcasting and where podcasting is taking us is there's it's kind of a huge learning opportunity and platform. And, you can't just learn in 5-6 minute little bites or something like that. Sometimes it takes a lot longer, to really develop an idea. You have 30 some books out there, and it's just to really dive in and what's really important, what you said too, is deliver value. And it's tough to deliver value in just a few minutes or just a quick clip. A lot of that is just they call it clickbait for a reason because they want you to, you may click on it, but if you're producing good content in short form, it's ultimately to take you into a longer form, to kind of satisfy that curiosity. And it's nice to see podcasting getting bigger. I'm not just the number of podcasts out there, but the number of people listening to podcasts. I think maybe it's a shift in our society. We're kind of getting away from all like the little small snippets that only really satisfy, maybe the ego in that short term, like little snackable content versus like kind of satisfying more of the mind. And like when you're really satisfying the mind, you're probably singing and speaking more to the heart, which is really where we begin to, gain more insight, gain more inspiration, light up on the inside, and really, can hopefully maybe discover more of who we are, through that form. So it's interesting how it's changing.
I agree with that. A couple things. When it comes to the short form content, there are more people taking it in. It just depends on the demographics, right? Because when you're talking to some teenagers, 16-year-olds, they want the short stuff because they are just kind of breezing through. They may not even know what they want to focus on yet. So they're kind of breezing through. But someone who's maybe 46 years old, they know what they want and they also know what they don't want. So they can give more time to something. And when it comes to the podcast or just audio period, like audio books, I believe audiobooks are outselling digital books these days and physical books. And the reason is because you can do more than one thing when you're listening to audio, whereas to read a book or watch a YouTube video, you can only do one thing because your eyes have to be on it and you have to listen. But with audio, I can listen to it while I'm shaving or while I'm driving or while I'm working out. So you can do more than one thing at the same time. And these days, everybody's doing more than one thing at the same time. So we're kind of playing the game as it is currently set up. So that's the great thing about audio. So as long as you have a good voice and you can get your point across, then again, audio is a great platform.
Yeah, which you do definitely have a great voice. For those listening, Dre also looks great. He is definitely our best dressed guest ever. He's in a full suit and tie. I mean, looking sharp. But I also wanted to read some of the comments that are coming off to the side. Amy says you can multitask with an audio podcast, which is exactly what you just said, Dre.
Yes, exactly.
And then she had a question for you. I'm going to add it here, see if it will pop up. It kind of covers up everything else. So, but I'll read it to you. It says, Dre, how would you approach a kid who's say 12? Wanting to open a small business? What would you say? What would you encourage them to do? How would you engage them in the process?
Open it. What's the business?
I love it. Launch.
Yeah, no, exactly. Open it.
Get started.
As Seth Godin says, ship. You got to get it out there. So whatever the business is, go and start the business. I would need more context to know what to do to give them advice, but the advice is go do it. But more context, I can give more of an answer.
Right on. And then we've got another question here from Bob. He says, how do you redirect a negative thought about fear so that people can have more confidence?
That's a great question. So the first thing we have to understand about fear is that fear is something that's created in the mind. Fear is not a real thing. Fear can't touch you. It can't catch you. It can't open your door. It's something that exists in our mind. So it's all about the conditioning, the way that we condition ourselves, because fear is not that fear is useless. It's actually useful because our fear of, getting hit by a car keeps us from running across the street on a red light, right? We wait. All right. So fear is useful in some ways, but we have to learn to control it and redirect and transmute that fear as necessary. So Robert Greene talks about this in the 50th Law, because that book is all about fear, right? And that's why he used 50 Cent. And that back in the days, we had real fears. Like there was a saber-tooth tiger around the corner, you can't eat these berries because they might be poisonous and you'll die. So we had fears because everyday life was really dangerous. But in the world that we live in now, in our contemporary worlds, we're not facing fear every time, not fear, but facing danger, real danger every time we leave our houses. It's not that something random can't happen, but for the most part, most of us are relatively safe. But we still have that lizard brain, as Stephen Pressfield talked about in The War of Art. We still have that lizard brain that still has that attachment to fear inside of us. So if we don't control it and give it something to do, then that fear just goes and finds random things to be afraid of. So in the Law of Success, Napoleon Hill talked about the 6 basic human fears. And back then, the number one thing on the list was the fear of poverty, because he wrote that book during the height of the Great Depression. And I believe the second fear, I don't know if it was number 2 on the list, but if I was to rearrange them now, the number 1 fear I would put at the top of that list today is the fear of criticism. That was one of his 6, but it wasn't number 1. I would put that number 1 now, because what happens is when people are afraid these days, what they're often afraid of is not something that's going to really actually happen to them. They're afraid of the judgment of other people.
Yep.
And social media is a great reflection of this, because people don't want to be attacked by a mob on social media because you said the wrong thing, or you posted the wrong thing, you had the wrong comment or wrong opinion, or you're out publicly doing something. Let's say a football player, you miss a field goal and your team gets kicked out the playoffs. Now everybody's bashing you. So a lot of people just don't want to be criticized, so they end up holding themselves back. So the question was, how do you redirect the fear? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Well, the thing about the fear is, and he was asking also about how to be more confident, right?
Right.
Was that also the part of the question? Okay. So the thing is, you have to understand the different uses of confidence and courage, because they are both necessary, but they're not the same, and they can work together. So confidence is based on your past. Confidence is based on, I know that I've shot 1,000 free throws in the gym. So when I get in the game and I have 2 free throws to win the game, I'm confident I can make them because I made them in practice. Confidence is based on your belief in your ability to do something because you've done it in the past. Discipline leads to confidence. Courage, on the other hand, is what you need when you're doing something that you have not done before. So when you're stepping into something new, when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, which is different for everybody, we all have different zones of comfort. When you're going to do something you have not done before, you can't look at that and say, well, I'm not confident about doing this. Of course you're not confident, because you never did it before. You have no track record of doing this thing. So of course you have no confidence. So sometimes when I'm talking to people about maybe joining a program of mine or doing something that they never done before, they say, well, Dre, I'm not very confident about doing this. I say, of course you're not. You never did it before. That's the whole point. Yeah. That's the reason why we're doing it. Right? You don't need confidence right now. What you need is courage, because the courage will allow you to step outside of the realm of what you're used to doing. And then once you do it, now your comfort zone expands a little bit, because now this is part of it. This new thing that you just did, now this is part of what you're used to because you've done it. So now the next time you need to do it, it doesn't bother you as much. So in the 50th Law, Robert Greene, he used 50 Cent as an example. He said first time 50 faced somebody who had a gun, he was frightened. And the second time, a little bit less. And the third time, it didn't matter, right? Because he got used to it. Being around people who had a gun became part of his comfort zone because he had experienced it. So the more experiences we get in life using courage, the more confidence we have, because we have the past experience. So a lot of people look for confidence when they're doing something new and they don't find it. And then they say, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm not confident. Well, you're kind of going in a circle there. It's like an endless loop. Yeah. Like back in the days in computer class in high school, you have an endless loop. When you messed up the formula, they would just keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's what a lot of people do in life, but they don't even understand what they're doing to themselves.
I love that, man.
Me too.
That's a great way of looking at things. And Will and I discussed this one quote last week, and I know it's been attributed to various folks, but our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And I think that's been attributed to Marianne Williamson and Nelson Mandela.
It's Mandela, I think,
Yeah. So anyway, I just love that you kind of made that distinction between confidence and courage. So many people are looking for that confidence when they haven't done something before. That's I've never heard that before, and that's fantastic. I love that. That is a golden nugget right there.
Well, they feed one another as well in some ways, right? So the more that you take the risk, I mean, that's the one way I like to define courage, is like taking the risk and just putting yourself out there, getting out of your comfort zone. The more confidence I continually have to take more risks. Right, to develop more courage. It's like, well, what can't I do? What am I capable of now? Once you kind of overcome that obstacle, expand, the zone of comfort a little bit more, and it's just like, oh, and then it's just like, I mean, what I have enjoyed, just taking risks and risk after risk, and just keep growing from those risks and developing more confidence along the way of my ability to take risks. Is it just like, you develop a greater sense of self, your self-talk begins to change, and begins to work for you. And you begin to, for me, I seek those opportunities, just like, all right, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's just try it, because I want to get so incredibly resilient and develop such a strong mind. And that it's just like, I can step into any situation and try to figure it out. It's really powerful. Right. But it's like, to come back to what you said also earlier with like, the fear of criticism is going to, constantly get in your way. But it's just like, but also who's criticizing you? Who are the people that, that you're giving your power to, or also letting you validate your life? It's interesting how it all works. And then, let's come back. We have a question here, Dre. It's from Jeremy. He says, like, what do best coaches have? Is a question that he asks. If we're going to get a coach, what are the qualities of a great coach?
That's a great question. It's actually something I've talked about to my audience, what you're looking for in a coach. First of all, your coach needs to understand what your challenges are. You need to believe that your coach understands what your challenge is or what your challenges are. That's the number one thing that a good coach has to do. You need to know that your coach knows whatever it is that you're dealing with, they can help you with. Secondly, they have to be very strong communicators, because what a coach's job is really to communicate to you. They're going to do it for you. They're going to help you understand that you can do it, whatever the it is, solving the problem, running the marathon, starting the business, whatever, making the money, whatever it happens to be. You need to believe that your coach can help communicate to you in ways that will help you do the thing that you need done. Third, your coach needs to be great at simplification and helping you understand things that you may not understand right now. And I've always not emphasized this, is something I've lately been talking about this to my audience about, is that when someone's a true expert at something, they can simplify it and clarify it in a way that they make it easy for anyone to understand. So there used to be a TV show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Remember that TV show?
Yeah.
Right. So when you're a true expert, you can make a fifth grader understand your thing, whatever it is. I can help a fifth grader who's never played sports understand basketball. Or I can make an adult who's never played sports understand basketball, because I can explain it and break it down in a way that makes it very simple and very easy to understand. And that's what a true expert can do. They simplify and clarify. Whereas someone who maybe wants to be an expert, but they're really not, what they do is confuse, and they gum up the conversation. They make it harder to understand, whereas a true expert makes things easier to understand. So they have to be a very good communicator. And communication, most of the time when people talk about communication, that's what they talk about, is your ability to speak or write or put your thoughts out there. But the other half of communication is your ability to listen, because a clear communicator has to, first of all, understand the problem. Because if I don't understand your problem, then I can't solve it. So right. I had to be willing to listen very well to what you're saying. I got to listen to what you're not saying. Mm-hmm. I had to be very good at asking the right questions, because if I ask the wrong question, then you could give me an answer and I can solve that, but I asked the wrong question. So we didn't even solve the problem, because we're solving a thing that's not even your real issue. Yeah. Your real issue is probably something that most people who are looking for a coach, let's say, they are looking for A, B, and C, because A, B, and C is based on what? Your current level of thinking. And your current level of thinking is what got you to the point for. So we don't need to solve A, B, and C. Probably. Most of the time when I'm working with people, they think they need A, B, and C solved, and maybe they do, and maybe do and C, but what we really need to solve is D, E, and F, that they're not even aware of, because all you needed was to solve A, B, and C. Well, let me GPT, or they can solve those. If all we needed was information,
right,
then there'd be no coaching and consulting industry. There'd be no need for it. What people actually need is, okay, yes, this is a problem, but this is only a symptom. This is happening, and that's happening because at root is this over here that this existed. And that's going to solve all these. That's what a coach. So, for example, when I was playing at a training coach, and I came to her once and I was like, well, my knee is bothering me. My knee keeps hurting. And I was playing basketball. Basketball players, your knee goes, you're in trouble. Yeah. So my knee is bothering me, and she's having me do some movements, just looking at it. And she's like, well, Dre, the problem is not your knee. Your knee is hurting, but that's not the problem. Your knee's hurting because it's overcompensating, because your quads are working harder. And the reason your quads are working harder is because your back is out of alignment. And the reason your back is out of alignment is because you're lifting too much weights up here. You're not doing enough down here. And when we fix that, then your knee will stop hurting. And I would never have figured that out on my own. That's what a good coach can do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. They deconstruct.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Get to the root of the problem, and really help you to address the problem that you don't even necessarily see. Now that said, I know you are coaching, and a lot of that comes through what you call Work on Your Game University. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what it offers to participants, maybe to our listeners? Maybe they could come back and sign up.
Sure. So Work on Your Game University is just work on your game. We just slapped the word university on it because it sounds cool. The place where people can learn. And really what it is, it houses all of our coaching, consulting, our courses, our programs, all of that stuff. And we have a 4-part framework based around mindset, which we talked about a lot here. Strategy, which is the plan of action. What are we going to do? Who, what, when, where, why, how. Third is the system. How do we get the strategy to happen over and over and over again so it is duplicatable, consistent, and predictable so we can predict results? And the last part is the accountability. How do we make sure that all the people involved are doing their job? How do we make sure that the system itself is doing its job? Because sometimes your strategy, it was working 2 weeks ago, but it's not working anymore. Anybody who does any online advertising, you know that an ad may work for 2 weeks, but then it stops working. So now we got to change it out. So accountability is about making sure that the people and the processes are always doing their jobs consistently. And that's an ongoing thing. It's not a set it and forget it thing. That's an ongoing process. So those 4 pieces are the high level points of what we do inside the university. But of course, every person we work with, it's bespoke to their situation and what they need. And we work with people in so many different industries. Most of the people who I work with are not former athletes who became speakers and authors. And so just to help you all understand, we get a lot of people from a lot of different places because people they like my approach. They like the fact that I can break things down, the fact that I can simplify and clarify. Yeah. So that's what the university is.
I like your approach.
And you communicate very well. And so, I mean, you're like obviously deeply invested in all this stuff with, writing so many books and so many talks and having a university. What are some of your favorite things about what you're doing? Like, what are some
things about what I'm doing?
Yeah,
nobody ever really asked me that question. I've done a lot of interviews. Nobody's asked me that.
There you go. The first time, right?
Favorite thing about what I'm doing is that I get to be myself 100% and turn it into a business opportunity. That's number one. Number two is that I do get to make a real impact with people who have real issues and they really want solutions. And we know that the stuff that we're doing over here, it actually works. So that's number two, is just knowing that you get to make a real impact and doing that. And the third thing that I would say, best thing about what I'm doing is just being able to fully express the thoughts that I've had. I have a thought or an idea. What can I do with this thought? Okay, this is a sentence long thought. Okay, I'll post this on Twitter. Okay, this is a 90-second level thought. I'll make it Instagram reel. All right, this is a 30-minute level thought. I'll do an episode on my show about it. This is a book level thought. I'll write a whole book about it. Right, so the good thing about the internet is that you can take whatever size idea you have and you got different platforms to share it depending on what it is. And you can shrink it down and you can expand it depending on what it is. So I would say those are the top 3 off the top of my head.
I love it, man. I love it. For our listeners, our viewers, what's the best way for them to start tracking and engaging in that content on Instagram, on YouTube? How can they find you?
Sure. So on YouTube, you just look up my name. I got probably 12,000 videos on YouTube, so I'm pretty easy to find. Just type my name in, Dre Baldwin. Well, half of them are basketball, so if you're not a basketball player, about 40% of that will be mindset stuff. And then on Instagram, it's just my name, at Dre Baldwin. I'm active on every social platform, so we publish on every platform every day. So whatever social media you like, I'm on it. Just look my name up. I'm very easy to find. Everything is public. And then just work on your game, university.com. That's where our focus is right now.
Awesome, man. And you are a content machine, man. I follow you on Instagram. It is impressive how much content you're putting out. And it's not just putting out content for putting out content's sake. It's quality content and quantity. So you're doing a great job, man. So
go ahead. It's like no. So what's Dre Baldwin? What does it look like in the next 4 or 5 years? Like what's the plan, or where can we hope to see from you? Like you're obviously very prolific at what you do. Like I'm excited to hear maybe what's coming next.
Next 4 or 5 years. Well, my son is 17 months, so he'll be close enough to almost being able to work. Yeah, we can put him to work. So I'm going to give him a job.
You could be editing your videos, right? You could be your video video editor or something.
If he learns how to edit, then he can have that job. That's a very time-intensive job. If he wants it, he can have that. But we'll probably start him out packaging up book orders, so he can just put the book in the envelope and take the little sticker and stick the book on, put the label on it. So that'll be his first job. And then when he gets tall enough, he can make the whiteboard reels. He can't do it. He's not tall enough yet. So he can do that next. But other than that, really just building up the university. I really didn't do a whole lot of professional speaking for, like, when COVID happened. I didn't do a lot of speaking. I stopped really focusing on speaking and really focused on the university, the coaching wing of it. But we're going to get back into the speaking business heavy this year, and adding more people to our university as coaching members and consulting. And we even work with people who have brick and mortar businesses. I was just talking to a guy actually today who's pending that he runs a brick and mortar business, and we're going to help him take that to the next level. So really just getting more people in the university, doing more speaking. I'll probably write some more books, and really that's going to be our focus. We're just going to focus on this heavy and eventually add more, probably get more people at least on the sales side who can close sales for us. As far as other coaches, I'm not ready to do that quite yet, but that may be something that we do in the future. But that's what the next 4 or 5 years are looking like.
When do you sleep, man? Holy cow. Writing books, doing the university. Holy cow. Oh, man. Well, hey, Dre, man, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today. And we very much appreciate all the wisdom that you have shared with us, with our audience. Man, we cannot thank you enough. That said, for our audience, we also want to thank you, those who are tuning in now live. We appreciate the questions that you put out there for Dre. We appreciate you tuning in later in the podcast while you're driving, like we talked about earlier. And hey, if you got something out of this episode, please share it with your family, your colleagues, your friends, your whoever you think could benefit from this. And then also go back, give us a review, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to our social media network. We are working hard to grow that so that we can grow our impact, not so that we can be social media influencers, but so that we can grow the impact. And again, what Dre just put out today is hugely impactful. So we want to share what he's putting out. So again, Dre, thank you so much for being here. Will, I'll turn it over to you for any final words and a closing practice, brother.
Yeah, well, we have a question from a guest or a listener. What's your number one book right now of all these books you have? What's the number one seller?
Oh, my written books?
Yeah, your book. Yeah, yep.
Oh, then I would send everybody to The Third Day. I'll give you a free copy of this book. Actually, if you just go to thirddaybook.com, it's all about how to show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. And the subtitle of this book is The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. So you can get a free copy of this. Just go to thirddaybook.com. This is my top book right now.
Thirddaybook.com for you. Jeremy, thank you for that question, and thank you for sharing that, Dre.
Yes, thank you for that question.
I've been, so I journal in the morning, like it's part of my practice. But then I have right next to me, I have, Stephen Pressfield, I'm reading, Turning Pro, and what a great book, Turning Pro. And I'm sure it's like a lot of the wonderful things that you talk about in your book too. And it really helps me to just get really clear about amateur does this is what a pro does. And there's,
that's right.
and there's a very clear, very clear moment where it's like you just know that, oh, now I'm pro. So it takes a lot of work to get there. And a lot of the wisdom that Dre, to our audience, has talked about today is what's going to take you from that amateur. And, you really need to upgrade your mindset. You really need to put in the work. You really need to develop that confidence. You really need to continually exercise the courage in order to get out of your comfort zone so you can see really what you're made of, but also what's getting in the way to really access that inner potential, to bring forth whatever that creative act or whatever, the effect that you want to change in the world. But it is possible, but it takes, like a coach we talked about, it takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of patience, and it takes, really upgrading your mind, your body, honoring your body too. I mean, it's, we talked briefly, about getting in your body and having a healthy body, but I can't even, and I'm sure Dre too, and John, you can't stress that enough. Like, you have to have a healthy body. You have to be sleeping in order to even to show up the best you can, maybe not every single day, but at least have the chance to really get in there and put forth your best effort on that particular day, because it's every day. It's every day, one step in front of the other. So Dre, thank you. Any closing words from you, Dre, before we start closing out?
Just remind everybody that we all have a game, whether you're a podcaster, entrepreneur, yoga instructor, athlete, speaker, student, or you're just trying to figure it out. We all have a game. You need to figure out first of all, understand what game you're in, figure out how you can best play that game. Then you got to go out there and perform and produce results, because we are in a results-based business, and you will be judged by the outcomes you produce or don't produce.
Yeah.
There you go.
Excellent. There it is. Well, thank you everybody for listening. I think we're just we can just do a little closing practice, John. And Dre, you're more than welcome to stick around. It's not going to be too long. John, you want to jump in and do this, or I can?
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I mean, this is one way that you can start to get out of your mind. And kind of let go of those thoughts that keep you in a mindset that keeps you stuck where you are. It's just getting to calm down your body. We do breathing. We're doing it now towards the end of the show, but let's just do some breathing, and then we're going to do just 1 minute of stillness, and just to get still. And why stillness is because, like, if you want to get better at doing things and doing everything, like Dre was saying earlier, you got to go the opposite in this case, and just get still and just be and just sit and let things be as they are. Because all the things we want to do comes from a place of stillness as well. So we're going to use the breath. We're just going to take 5 breaths. We're going to calm everything down with these 5 breaths. And this calms the body and the mind down. And then we'll just do, I got to get my phone. We'll just do 1 minute of trying to be absolutely still as best you can. And that'll be all we'll do. So to get yourself ready, everybody, sit up if you can with like a longer, dignified spine. So not like couch potatoing and rounding your shoulders, but sit up nice and tall. We'll do these 5 breaths. We'll exhale the breath out to begin and try to get as empty as possible as you exhale. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let's take that first big, deep inhale, nice and broad breath in. Keep going, big breath. And exhale out the mouth, nice and easy and slow. And maybe you can melt some tension in your face, jaw, shoulders, or other parts of your body. Again, in breath. Out. Again, in. Easy out. Last 2 in. Let it go. Last one on the end of the exhale. We're going to drop right into that 1 minute of stillness. Here we go. Inhale. Exhale. And here we go. We're still just come back to a normal breath, and we're on the clock. Just be here as things are. Instead of waiting for this to be over, what if you just like feel your heartbeat or listen to the world around you? And instead of bending to the will of the ego, what if you just find your breath instead? Keep finding that breath. And this is a great way with this 1 minute of stillness to really help focus the mind and the body and get to know what is stillness. Stay with it. A minute can be long when we're working with stillness. Good work. Just keep coming back to your breath. It's another opportunity to really get to know your mind. Okay, we got staying for 5, 4, 3, 2. Good. Awesome, everybody. Big breath in. Great. We just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Dre, for being such an incredible guest and for hitting us up a second time to be like, hey, I want to be in the show. So we really appreciate you being here, and let us know we can help you anyway in the future. We already gave all your information, but that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dre. Take care, everyone. Peace.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.